this event is our very first public event, and our is the South African Coalition for Transitional Justice. The coalition is made up of 11 organizations based in Cape Town and Johannesburg, and we also have individual members. So one of the individual members is Yasmin Suka. And Yasmin Suka will be delivering the lecture today. So we thank you very much, Yasmin, in advance. You'll get many claps as we go through, but welcome. Thank you very much for agreeing to be the speaker today. This event is organized by one of the committees of SACTJ, the acronym, the Education, Research and Memorialization Committee. There are other committees, the Reparations Committee, the Accountability Committee, the Anti-Torture and Enforced Disappearances Committee. And then there's also Media and Communications. The greatest thing that happened in the planning of this event was we found a wonderful connection with the Black Sash. And I think just if you look around the room, we can I want to honor every single member of the Black Sash who has come here, and thank you to the staff of the Black Sash, the leadership of the Black Sash for being with us on this very important event. Thank you for coming. Can I just give you a clap? So, you know, we had to turn away a lot of people who wanted to come. It was very difficult for us. And then we realized maybe we should have booked the Baxter or the Cape Town Convention Center. But it is very fitting to be in this very hall, because when this community house became a heritage site, there were certain prominent people, activists, who are honored. And in this room, this is called the Ashley Creel Hall. And Ashley Creel was killed by the security police in July 1987. This is one of the outstanding matters of the unfinished business of the TRC. And if you go around the corner there, you will see Neil Agate and his foyer. And he did not commit suicide because he rattled on his comrades. He was murdered too by the security police in February of 1982. And then in the room where you have an exhibition of some of the members of the coalition, that's called the Imam Haroon Hall. And as you know, there was a reopened inquest, and he did not slip down a flight of stairs and have a faulty heart. He was, in fact, tortured to death on 27 September 1969. And then next to that, in the foyer, there's Luke Mwazwembe. Unfortunately, we don't have the Kulamani comrades in this room, but his brother always used to talk about how his brother, as the police were taking him out of the house, how his neck broke like a chicken. This is what he said: it broke like a chicken. He heard a snap. He was found hanging in his cell just after being picked up in Yanga, in his cell in Caledon Square, and it was the inquest at the time said he had committed suicide, which is not true. And then there's Katrine as you come in, Curtis and her little daughter, Katrine was 6, and her mother, Jeanette, were killed in a parcel bomb let off by Craig Williamson. And he got amnesty for that. And then there's Elijah Lawser, who was also tortured to death. He died in 1977. Then outside, there's Dulcie September, who was murdered in Paris. Let me get the date, 29th of March, 1988. And then you'll find an installation for Wolfie Rhodes, Barry Streak, and Myrtle Witboy. So there's some memory gardens outside. I don't think the curators of this community house knew at the time that this is transitional justice. And this is why this is very suitable to have this first event in this very place, in this very building, the community house. So a very warm welcome to everybody. We're going to proceed with the program, and I'm going to give you a little hint into how it is. We're going a little bit late. We're going to watch a film. It's a short film. It gives you a context into the South African Coalition for Transitional Justice. And then we're going to invite Yasmin onto the stage, and Yasmin is not going to present a long academic lecture. It's going to be shorter than usual, but deep tribute to Mary. And then we're going to have a little comfort break. And that won't be more than 15 minutes. The toilets are outside here, men's and women's. Have a short comfort break. When you hear the trumpet, Drew, where are you with your trumpet? When you hear the trumpet, please come back to your seats, because we'll proceed with the program. And then we'll have a short kind of conversation, some with the people in the room, and we'll invite a few people up here. We've got seats, so we'll bring them up here. And then we will migrate to the Imam Harun Hall. You can see some of the work that is being done by the partners of the coalition, and you'll have some nice refreshments, and then we'll say goodbye to each other. So that's the program for the day. And I want to, at this point, I like to move around a bit more, but I'm happy to, for now, be at the podium. I'm going to ask Harun if it's possible for us to show the film. We might have to close we'll just have to see if we have to close any of the blinds or curtains to see as best as possible. Thank you. This film is a profile of the South African Coalition for Transitional Justice and its work to hold the government accountable to deliver all the recommendations of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. There is urgent need for a comprehensive policy framework to enable government to implement the different forms of reparations.
My name is Yasmin Suka. I'm a human rights lawyer and worked in the human rights field before I became a commissioner on the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa. I was probably the person who put out the lights and was responsible really for the final set of reports that we handed over in 2003.
My name is Mary Burton, and I was a member of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and I have been interested in the work of the SACTJ, the South African Coalition for Transitional Justice, for a long time, since it was established, and followed its work. And more recently, that when it has become more formalized in a way in terms of membership of organizations, I've been happy to join as an individual member.
So my name is Kasia Zdunczyk, and I work as a project or program manager for the unfinished business of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission program at the Foundation for Human Rights. I also serve as a treasurer on the SACTJ board. And I've been involved in the work of the South African Coalition for Transitional Justice for the past 5 years.
My name is Fatima Harun Masood. I am the youngest daughter of the late Imam Abdullah Harun, who was incarcerated and he was tortured, murdered and killed in detention of September of 1969.
I'm Judy Seidman. Kulamani was one of the founding organizations in the SACTJ, and as the SACTJ became more solid and expanded, more of my work was related to that. And eventually I ended up as a Kulamani representative on the SACTJ.
I am Namarashia Ponase, who is a victim and survivor of a South African apartheid, gross human rights violation, who is now an activist, who was working with other victims.
My name is Raisa Pather. I am an investigator, a senior investigator with Open Secrets, and I am also the vice chairperson of the SACTJ. Open Secrets is also a member organization of the SACTJ, so that is my association.
I was the deputy chair of the Human Rights Violations Committee, and that was really the engine room of the commission. It conducted hearings, it documented the testimony of victims and survivors, and was also responsible for dealing with perpetrators.
From the very beginning, the task was to try and reach as many people as possible, knowing always that it was an impossible task given the time frames available. It was a huge ask, and obviously one that would not be fulfilled properly. But the objective was to try and make it at least as representative as possible. And in a way that should help us now in trying to work out what we can do about those people who did not come forward or were not able to be reached, and who view themselves as equally victims of that kind of oppression in the past.
When the TRC winded up its operations, the Foundation for Human Rights has continued the work on ensuring that the recommendations of the TRC are adequately implemented by the government. And that was really in that capacity that the Foundation for Human Rights has become involved in the work around ensuring criminal accountability for the apartheid-era gross human rights violations.
My mother always had the feeling that, in hindsight, that she felt there was no need to go to the TRC. She said, it's just a gut feeling that the TRC is not going to bring any joy into the lives of so many people that have now put themselves in a position in front of the world or in our country that there is not going to be real justice. It's just a feeling that she has.
And so when it has its final meeting in March 2003, the Commission actually says that this question of the closed list needs to be re-examined because in many ways it deprives victims of their rights.
I'm the one of the people who could not come inside the Truth and Reconciliation Commission because why they stopped us. I was right at the door when the officials of the TRC then they told us no, they are coming back because during that time it was still, the violation was still going on, the conflict, especially in East Rand, it was still taking on. Then they promised to come back, then they could not. Then when we went in after 1998 to put our stories, they told us it's closed.
So when they came and my mother was still alive, and met Yasmin Howardwani and Judge Siraj Desai, he asked my mom in Afrikaans how would she feel if the that the inquest should be reopened. So she said, as die Boeta so sê, dan gaan maar voort. And if this is going to bring closure to my children, then I'm at peace.
Unfortunately, in the democratic era, our public officials have yet to deal with the crimes of the past. We can see this in the endless delays to deal with the TRC cases, and we can also see this in the way that the majority poor Black South Africans are living day to day with the legacy of apartheid that we have not yet challenged. And there certainly needs to be redress for the crimes of the past. It is important for the youth in particular to understand how the crimes of the past affect their present and their future in South Africa today.
The South African Coalition for Transitional Justice has initiated a national mobilization drive to develop the policy framework in an inclusive and consultative manner to guide and fast-track the delivery of reparations by the government.
We are already started the campaign of mobilizing all the victims in all areas, in all society of South Africa.
In some ways, I think that the TRC is an episode in the past as far as young people in South Africa are concerned. And maybe we have to accept that. It was always going to be nothing more than a bridge to a new future.
To say what exactly is it that we need at this stage, 30 years after the end of apartheid, 25 years after the close of the TRC, what are the things we need? If it's not us, what are the things that our children and our grandchildren need? What are the things our communities need?
The proper medication is still needed, and the issue of how proper housing is still needed. The issue of also proper education for ourselves and our children is still needed, and a proper financial help is needed.
How do we get companies to account? What are the mechanisms? Is it possible for us to achieve reparations through corporations paying back what they illegally and unjustly earned during apartheid? I think these are questions that we certainly need to grapple with, and that hopefully through the SACTJ, we can keep pushing forward and applying pressure for justice.
So yes, we have to address the clamor of those who did not receive any reparations at all, and who believe that they should be equally treated, or that there should be some compensation, but also the clamor of the majority of our citizens for a decent life, for a decent chance, for health care and education and all the benefits that were part of the overall recommendations of the TRC.
There is an opportunity with reparations. I also think that the work that the coalition is doing at this point, which is actually to begin these consultations with victims, which should have taken a long time ago, I think that's an important opportunity to put on the table an evidentiary basis for why we should be able to mount this constitutional challenge.
Good afternoon. It's really wonderful to be here today and to be here in such a historic building. It really honors those who gave up their lives in South Africa for freedom. And quite frankly, when we watch this documentary on reparations, one really feels ashamed that so many years after the work of the Truth Commission, we have yet to see victims recognized and to receive proper reparations in the way in which the Truth Commission intended. But today we're really here to honor somebody incredibly special. And, you know, I titled my presentation, Mary Burton, A Life of Quiet Courage and Ethical Clarity. And I'm really glad that we are doing it while Mary's still alive. So we gather not simply to reflect on Mary's life, but really to understand a particular way of being and living in the world, a way that refuses to be indifferent and insists on human dignity, even when the law itself denied it. Mary's life does not announce itself loudly. It didn't rely on spectacle. Instead, it was built on something far more demanding, a sustained and disciplined commitment to justice in a society where such a commitment carried real risk. As Mary herself said, we were not brave, we were simply doing what we believed was right. And yet, in the context of apartheid South Africa, dissent was an invitation to surveillance, to harassment and arrest. And that insistence on doing what is right was itself an act of quiet but unmistakable courage. Mary's story, of course, begins far away from the shores of South Africa. Born in Buenos Aires, Argentina, Mary was shaped by a childhood that moved from Argentina, Brazil, and Europe, and where she learned early on that societies are constructed, contingent, and therefore capable of being remade. On her arrival in South Africa in 1961, she encountered apartheid not as normality, but with a profound moral dislocation, and later reflected, when I came to South Africa, I found apartheid very difficult to understand. That moment of dislocation was decisive. It meant she did not accept what many South Africans had learned to normalize, to justify, or simply ignore. Mary arrived, of course, at a time when apartheid was consolidating its most brutal and oppressive period, and her own journey into activism was not immediate. As she put it, at first I simply observed how the system worked. Eventually, I realized I could not just stand by and do nothing. And that shift from witnessing to responsibility marks the point at which she understood that in a system like apartheid, to observe without acting is not neutrality, but really complicity. Her entry into activism came through joining the Black Sash in 1965, once described, of course, as the silent sisterhood that haunted a government. The Black Sash was far more than a protest movement. It was a disciplined, public, legally conscious, powerful, non-violent repudiation of apartheid's legal order, led by white women who chose to stand against a system from which they could have been simply beneficiaries. They stood not just in silence, not passively, but as an indictment of an unjust system. And they stood when others were silent, when protest was dangerous, and when silence became complicity. We have to understand that standing publicly against apartheid in the 1960s and 1970s was not just symbolic. It was considered subversive. It marked you and placed you under scrutiny, exposed you to the coercive power of the state, and ultimately taking a stand amounted to an act of defiance. As Mary herself reflected, it was important to be seen, to stand, and to witness. But of course, her activism did not end at visibility. She also played a pivotal role in helping the Black Sash to transition from symbolic protest into more direct forms of engagement with affected communities. And under her leadership, the movement deepened its involvement through establishing advice offices, offering legal and practical support to the most vulnerable Black South Africans navigating past laws and systemic exclusion. This transition marked a shift from witnessing injustice to actively intervening in it, broadening the organization's relevance and impact. Mary herself worked in the Sash's advice offices, spaces of quiet resistance embedded within a violent system, where she sat with those who had no access to lawyers, no protection, and no recourse. And she said, listening came from seeing how people were affected before we offered advice. Her activism, of course, exposed her to the everyday machinery of apartheid, past laws where human beings were processed with bureaucratic efficiency like a sausage machine, migrant hostels in Langa, which she described as terrible places. And these were not isolated injustices. They were the system functioning exactly as bureaucratically designed to exact the most cruel and inhumane treatment. Her response was deceptively simple. She didn't turn away. She remained present in spaces most preferred not to see. By the 1980s, of course, apartheid had entered one of its most violent and oppressive phases. Mary Burton marched to Pollsmoor prison demanding the release of Nelson Mandela. She attended funerals of activists assassinated by the state, including that of the Cradock Four, moments she described as galvanizing. And in 1985, she herself was arrested. Mary, of course, never dramatized these moments. However, the arrest, surveillance, intimidation were not incidental. They were the instruments of the state's response to dissent. And she insisted we did what we could where we were. That insistence is politically significant because it collapses the difference between ordinary life and moral responsibility. Mary became president of the Black Sash from 1986 to 1990, guiding it through repression and into transition. In 1994, she played a pivotal role in South Africa's first democratic elections as a Western Cape electoral officer, helping to midwife a democratic order out of a deeply violent past. I first met Mary at Bishop's Court in October 1995, where the Archbishop convened us as newly appointed Truth Commissioners to begin the work of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Mary accepted the role with great deliberation, not impulse, and deeply humble, she asked the question, why her? And she was encouraged by Albie Sachs to accept the appointment and did so fully aware of what it in fact would ask of her. And that matters because working in the Truth Commission required a rare strength to sit with pain, not once, but again and again, and not to turn away. And over the 2 years, she listened to testimony after painful testimony, of the many who spoke of their pain, their suffering, their humiliation, and also the loss of life. She commented then that the daily hearing of the stories took us into dark places, and at the same time noting it gave people a chance to reach out to each other. The Archbishop's articulation of Ubuntu as the core value guiding of the work of the Commission, that our humanity is bound up in the humanity of others, for we can only be human together, is precisely the ethic that defined Mary's work, a recognition that justice begins with acknowledging the humanity of others. Nevertheless, Mary was not naive and was one of the first to admit that the whole truth was not revealed at the TRC and that the healing process was not complete. And for her, I would say that meant no prosecutions, inadequate reparations, and the structural injustices of our past left largely untouched. The Truth Commission had laid a foundation, and she understood even then that the TRC was a beginning, necessary but not sufficient, and that its unfinished work would define the years ahead. I want to talk about a short anecdote. Mary and I were both summoned to George in August 1998 by the legal team, and we went there expecting to participate in a hearing where the former president of apartheid South Africa, P.W. Botha, would finally testify before the commission. Until that moment, he had backpedaled coming, and the TRC had almost reached the end of its working lifespan. In George, he eventually refused to appear before the commission, rejecting its legitimacy outright. Following his refusal, he was charged, and in August 1998, at a clear sunny day, appeared in the George's Magistrates Court on a charge of failing to comply with a lawful subpoena under the TRC Act. We arrived expecting to return that same day. Neither of us had a change of clothing, and neither did we have a room. And I think the two of us were forced that night to share a bed, which we did. And given the haste, of course, with which we had left Cape Town, we stayed and we waited an entire day suspended in uncertainty, wondering whether he would appear, whether he would finally account. But once he refused, the stage was set for his trial on contempt charges. But the next day was extraordinary. Crowds gathered. I am not sure where all of those people came from. People who had traveled not for the spectacle, but for the reckoning. And there in the ordinary magistrate's court stood a man who from 1978 to 1989 had presided over one of the most repressive phases of apartheid, a period marked by states of emergency, mass detention, assassinations by death squads, massacres, and the militarization of the state and governance. He'd effectively turned the apartheid state into a criminal one. Botha's intransigence had, of course, long defined his rule, a refusal to concede, to negotiate, or to recognize the legitimacy of those he governed. It was politics of defiance rooted in racial supremacy and executive impunity. And yet in that moment, the intransigence no longer mattered. Why? He was required, however reluctantly, to stand before a black magistrate within a constitutional order he had opposed, and he had to answer to the law. That moment marked a profound inversion for South Africa, because power once absolute was now rendered accountable, and authority once violent and unchecked brought it into the ordinary space of law. And while not complete justice, it was nevertheless a rupture in the architecture of impunity. So that was a funny moment that we shared, and at the end of it, I think I was almost glad that he didn't come to the Truth Commission, because the sight of seeing him have to answer and to stumble over his answers and to realize that this man, once powerful, was brought low, was, I think, a huge, reward for the people who traveled there. But Mary's commitment to social justice and equality didn't end with the Truth Commission. She established the Register of Reconciliation, also recognizing that many voices had never been heard. She also helped launch the Home for All campaign, calling on white South Africans to confront their privilege and responsibility. And she said, and I quote, "We must continue to ask difficult questions of ourselves. There has to be an awareness amongst those who have wealth." And she understood that reconciliation without redistribution is not reconciliation at all. And she said, without something being done, reconciliation is difficult. So Mary's work pushes us precisely in this direction, beyond symbolism and towards justice as a material reality. If you ask everybody who knows her what defines her, the response is unanimous: humility and kindness. But this humility is not incidental. And at a moment when the TRC elevated voice and recognition, Mary was equally attentive to what lay beyond it, the unmet demands for reparations and material justice. She rejected personal recognition, always insisting on collective responsibility. And I think what very few people know is that when she was appointed to the Truth Commission, she contributed a part of her salary to reparations. And she always returned to the same simple conviction: ordinary people can make a difference when they act together. And courage is often found in small, consistent actions. So Mary's humility is not incidental, it's political. And it reminded me of something the late Frenny Janwala, another powerful South African woman, reminded us of, that the Constitution demands active citizens, not passive beneficiaries. And this is the ethical premise that I would argue defines Mary Burton's life. That justice is not something to be delegated, but something to be enacted. And this is not modesty, it's deliberate, a refusal of individual acclaim, and a commitment to justice as a collective practice. In conclusion, I would like to say that Mary's life does not allow us the comfort of admiration without obligation. She represents moral courage and sustained resistance in the face of an unjust legal order, and an equally sustained refusal to accept partial justice thereafter. She stood against apartheid when it was law. She listened when the country began to reckon with its past. And when the transition came, she insisted that the work was not over, and in her own words said, "The word of justice is never finished." And if we want to emulate her example, then we must confront an uncomfortable truth, that South Africa did not dismantle the structural foundations of racialized inequality. It didn't confront the economic crimes of our colonial and apartheid past, and it didn't deliver the reparative justice that was promised. And without something being done, reconciliation is difficult. So Mary's lived reality leaves us with a political demand. We did what we could where we were. In essence, the question is no longer what she did, but what we together are prepared to do now. As Nelson Mandela reflected, after climbing a great hill, one only finds that there are many more hills to climb. Mary understood this deeply, that the end of apartheid was not the end of justice. It was simply the beginning. I'd like to end with a quote from Maya Angelou, my most favorite feminist author, that history, despite its wrenching pain, cannot be unlived, but if faced with courage, need not be lived again. And that's the story of what Mary embodies, living life with courage, a real example that all of us have to emulate. So thank you very much, Shirley and the coalition, for giving me this opportunity to Mary. I don't think you understood how much you meant to all of us, because gently you would steer us in the right direction. And we were a difficult bunch to manage. And for that, I would like to thank you, and really to thank your family for sharing you with us, because it was really an inspiration working with you. There have been many mentors in my life. The late Sheena Duncan was another one who taught me that even if you were a lawyer, a non-lawyer like her knew more law than most lawyers forget. And Mary, too, I think taught all of us that our job there was to be humble and to listen and really to pay attention to victims. So thank you very much. And to Ayuvila and to Sophia, who made life very easy, thank you.
You're welcome.
We're going to have to share it, right? Can we settle down, please? Thank you, Drew. It was very moving, actually. You know, I think the symbolism of the trumpet is that it's often Did you hear? I was obscuring people's view of you, Mary. Thank you for that. But, you know, usually a trumpet is a call. It's a call. Usually, often it's ahead of a war. And sadly, we're still in struggle. And it's a clarion call to continue the struggle. So that's how I felt moved by your trumpet. Thank you, Drew. And you'll notice that there's none of Mary's 3 sons or grandson or relative is here on the stage, because there's been a request that we open up a question and any member of the family can answer that question. Right? Is that okay? So I think we're going to start by putting your sons in the frame here. And the question, you can decide who answers it. There is a roving mic. What was it like to have a mother like Mary?
I guess there's probably numerous answers, but the best one is probably going to be the shortest one. And I would say that there are a couple of episodes that stand out in my mind. One in particular being when our telephone at home was constantly being bugged by the security branch. And that was kind of when it really dawned upon us that our household and our family was actually under almost constant scrutiny. It certainly curtailed what we were able to say on the phone in those lengthy conversations with our young girlfriends at the time, because you could always detect the presence of the special branch when they were recording and listening in on your phone calls. You could either hear them breathing or making noises, or you could hear the whirring of the tape machine. It was a very real realization. The other thing that stands out for me is when prisoners were being released from Robben Island, and our house became I suppose, kind of a halfway house. And that was a really, really interesting insight. And again, something which brought home the reality of what was going on in the bigger context of South Africa. So I don't know whether there's any others who want to add other anecdotal contributions, but over to them.
Do you want to say? I think it's important for us as boys and maybe just to recognize the fact that although Mary was incredibly busy with the numerous meetings and forums that she attended, and quite often people coming to our house as well, we never felt even vaguely neglected. She had to share her time amongst all 4 of us as well, but yeah, it certainly, we didn't feel she was taken away from us at all, and we were all just incredibly proud of her.
Beautiful. Yep. Good.
Just building off what Uncle Rich said, the pride. Obviously, Liv and I weren't alive during the apartheid era, but something that stands out to me quite a lot is the reminders of how proud we are, because people who were alive during that time have come up to me, like recognizing my surname, teachers and university lecturers and colleagues recognizing the surname and saying, hang on, are you related to Mary? And saying, wow, like your grandmother is part of the reason I'm a free person. And that's like very real effect. To get out of work today, I had to message my boss and say, can I please be excused? You know, I've got to step out. And he said to me, 5-word response. He said, of course, she's a legend.
I think the next questions maybe we would like to ask and throw open to any Black Sash member who wants to reflect on Mary's and your relationship with Mary and the work in the Black Sash. Any comments there? And you can please host this part of the question.
Cool. Does anyone, any former Sash member want to speak about Mary? And we've got our director here and we'll start with you. Just want to welcome Rachel Bukasa, who's the director of Black Sash and who's been the director for the past 5 years, and who's very fond of Mary. And maybe you can just share a little bit. Thanks,
Sure,
Rachel.
Thank you so much. And Mary, it's such an honor. I met Mary when I joined the team at Sash. And even though they say, you know, she was the former president of Sash, Mary has continued to be so instrumental and useful to us. And she's been really the sounding board of something you need. A couple of years ago, Mary and I did a piece about 2 really different women, 50 years apart in age, running the same organization. And what I found is that Mary's wisdom in terms of just strategy, in terms of where you need to think through things, has been really instrumental to us. And I don't think anyone in the room here would say that she's left Sash full on. And so, Mary, we really honor you today and the work that you've done and your need to not take credit for it. The piece I mentioned, I think Gail is in the room. It took forever to get her to agree to sort of just being in the spotlight despite all the work that's been done. So, Mary, thank you for everything. This organization remains to stand because of the strong foundation you had set. And it's easy for the rest of us to come on board and just lay on those train tracks and carry the work forward. So thank you, Mary.
Thank you. And if any of Mary's former colleagues also would like to say something, please do. But in the meantime, I will say I went through the UCT archives last year for Black Sash's 70th. And I just went through a stack of letters that Mary had written to Cheryl Carolus, to Nelson Mandela, several to Nelson Mandela, to Fatima Meer, constantly writing letters to people in prison. Just encourage, well, Cheryl Carolus wasn't in prison at the time. She was, you were congratulating her on the UDF. But just these constant letters of encouragement that you also wrote to Fatima Meer, who was imprisoned at the time, and others. And I just thought they were just these amazing moments of encouraging other people in the face of what was such hardship. And I think that it speaks to what Yasmina spoke about, also just being this kind person, Mary. So thank you for that. If any of Mary's comrades want to say something. Here we go. Oh, there's a Roman mic.
Hi. I'm Anna Marie, and very privileged to have Mary. We're the same age, so we're kind of also age friends. But there are 2 parts of Mary that have not yet been mentioned. The one is that she is an incredible writer. She not only wrote the Black Sash story, but she writes the most sensitive, beautiful, creative stuff. And I've been a writing companion with her. I also worked with her in the Black Sash, in the advice office, so I know the stuff that Yasmin said and lots of other little bits too. But the other thing about Mary, and it's interesting, Shirley, that you called her Mother Mary. Let's forget about Arundhati Roy for the moment and focus on a part of Mary that maybe doesn't show immediately. Her family will know it. Her incredible sense of fun. We used to put on Black Sash plays, and Mary was never averse to going on stage and kind of, as much as it's possible for Mary, making a fool of herself. And one of the plays was called Samantha Sash. And those of you who know Thisbe Clegg, she was in nappies and in a basket. And guess who was Mother Mary? Mother Mary was the very frustrated mother of this young Sash activist who wanted to do everything that she shouldn't do. And Mary, it has been such a joy and privilege to walk alongside you for quite a few years as your friend. Thank you. And you are so fittingly honored today.
Sure. Are there any other former Sashers who would like to say something? I won't put you on the spot, but... Oh, there we go. Yes. Thank you. At the back. Thank you. Sorry. There we go.
I just wanted to say that I really enjoyed being a member of the Black Sash, far more than working in jobs and things like that, because there was such a sort of spirit of cooperation between us. And I think that in many respects, although other people who were members were obviously very nice people, was due to the leadership. So thank you very much, Mary.
Thank you. Hi, Marge.
Thanks. Mary, I'm speaking as a fellow Sasher, a person who was more a rural field worker in the Transvaal fighting forced removals, but also as a teacher, because I later became a history teacher, and I'm very aware of this feeling and debate amongst the youth about the TRC. And when I was president of the South African Society for History Teaching, we had you speak on a panel online about the TRC. And I think it's so important to have that input now, especially now that it's back under the spotlight, because I think the youth never really understood the difference between the NPA not prosecuting and the TRC's terms of reference. And I think it's something that continues to be very important. So thank you for all you did in the TRC. Thank you for being on those panels to educate the youth. And this little booklet that's been handed out, I used a lot in teaching. And I think with this new history syllabus, we really need to scrutinize it to make sure that there is space for that truth to constantly come out. Thank you.
Thank you, Marge.
I think maybe, Mary, you want to say a few words.
Thanks, Shirley. And so in the first place, thanks to you and thanks to creating this wonderful event. It's a very special moment for me. And I'd like to say that the Black Sash did much more for me than I could ever have done for the Black Sash. There was I, 21-year-old, nearly married, put down to live in Rondebosch, and not understanding what on earth was going on around me. And I asked questions, and questions made people feel uncomfortable. The first people I knew were Jeff's friends, all white. They didn't want to talk about it. And there was I stuck, full of questions, and nobody giving me an answer. And then I met Bergliot Dallas, whose husband was the lawyer who handled many of the advice office cases. And she had been invited to a Black Sash meeting, and I asked if I could go with her. And we agreed that if this funny organization with a funny name was any good, we would both join. And that's what we did. And that was the beginning for me of understanding what apartheid really meant in people's lives. And I'm so grateful to the Black Sash for having given me knowledge and opportunities to meet different people and to do what I believed was important work together with a group of women who often fought, often argued, but always ended up, I think, doing the right thing. So it's great to be here, but it's particularly great to honor the Black Sash and its history.
Lastly, I'm going to turn some questions around the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and invite some of the members of the coalition to maybe make a point or two here at this point. But I want to preface this by saying that when I testified to the Truth Commission, it was in 1987 at the Great Hall at UWC, 1997, beg your pardon, thank you. And Denzel Potgieter asked me, so starting off, Mary was the lead person there from the Human Rights Violation Committee. And Denzel asked me, do you swear? And I said, yes, a lot. And of course there was a problem because I had to swear to saying the truth and nothing but the truth at that moment. But I in the excitement, I was just very truthful. So I felt so comfortable with Mary among the commissioners fielding me questions. I want to thank you for that, Mary, because I was able to really say what I needed to say, and you were there to listen, and everyone did too. So we've got a number of our members in this room. We've got individual members, and I invite anyone, if you want to become an individual member of the commission, the coalition, you are welcome. We've got a website, you can go on and you can join. Mfundo Walaza, please. No pressure at all. But we've got a member or members of the coalition here, from the Trauma Center in Woodstock, from Healing of Memories, from Kulumani's reparations, Galela Reparations Movement. We've got Kulumani in the back as well from the Western Cape. We've got Human Rights Media Center. We've got Foundation for Human Rights. We've got, who else have I left out? Imam Harun Foundation, and Open Secrets. So I invite anyone from the coalition maybe to add, and some members here, individual members, I've already mentioned that they are in the room, individual members. Please, if you've got something to say, some comment to make, and now is the time to do so.
Good afternoon, Moeni, everybody. My name is Fatima Harun Masood, and I am from the Imam Harun Foundation and also part of the SACTJ. Mary, and to your sons and daughters and grandchildren, firstly, I want to say thank you for your children and your family for sharing your mother with a South African society, a woman that is resilient, stood for truth and justice. She had no fear. In a quiet, humble way, she had that inner strength. And I would like to share with the family as well and everyone else. Many, many, many years ago, Mary came knocking on our door when my mother was still alive. And my sister was here from England at the time with her children. And Mary had made contact before that, wanting to know if you want to attend the TRC. But of course, the Harun family never attend the TRC. But that's a story at another time. But the most important thing is, Mary, today we honor you, and we will always honor your legacy and your memory. You have built a very strong legacy for women, by women, and as a powerful woman in her own right. You are here today to be honored, and I'm so pleased that the SACTJ and everybody else decided to do this in your lifetime, because it's important that we need to remember, not with disrespect to our men, please, that we remember our women stand tall and they stand strong. So Mary came to us, to your children, I say, and your mom took us to Maitland Police Station. She made all the necessary arrangements that we, as a family, in all the years, we've never gone to the police cell where we were told that our father fell down a few flights of stairs and that's where he died. So she made all the arrangements to go to the Maitland Police Station and to Culloden Police Station at the time, just for us to see for ourselves where the cell was, where our father was kept. And Mary, that will always stay in our memory as gratitude to you for taking the time amongst the busy schedule that you led at the time, during the TRC, post the TRC, and in your lifetime. And also, just as an anecdote, your mom also served on the Imam Harun Education Trust for many years. It's not part of the Imam Harun Foundation. There's the Imam Abdullah Harun Education Trust, and she served well. She gave her information, her commitment, her trustworthiness, and the dedication as a woman of honor. She did well. And of course, there comes a time in all our lives we've got to say goodbye to the things that we love to do most, and we need to concentrate on ourselves, on our health, and our age. But I'm sure Mary will go down in history as a woman of worth, of note, and a woman that will always be remembered for her relentless kindness that she shared not only to the Harun family, but to so many, 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 many women across South Africa. Thank you, Mary.
I think surely it must also be noted that now the Black Sash's offices are in Iman Haroon Street. And so it's quite fitting that, there's these connections. And so now, if any of you want to come to Iman Haroon Street and see exhibitions of Mary and other people and other former Sash members, we have an exhibition room that just showcases some of this history in Iman. When the roadworks are done, if anyone's been in Iman Haroon Street lately.
Do you know where Coimbra is? Yes? Well, it's kind of vertically opposite. Yeah. There you go. I see that. So thank you, Fatima. Masood, Harun Masood, thank you so much for your words. Sophia Bray, you've got the mic. Are you next? Or are you going to pass it on to someone else? Anyone else from the coalition want to say something? Let me put you in. Okay. Yeah, all right.
Hi, everyone. Hello, Mary. I'm Deborah Byrne, and I'm from the Foundation for Human Rights. And I'm really honored to be here for the Foundation. It just brings together generations, the depth of what we carry forward with us, the tasks ahead of us. And I think just from the Foundation side, part of the honor, I think, to you and to your work, we have the legacy also there of Yasmin Sukho, who remains on our board. But it's wonderful to know that we have generations coming through in the Foundation of young teams who are carrying this work forward. And our unfinished business of the TRC work is really pivotal, we know, at the moment, and important work in the country. The Commission itself, we know the challenges, we know the pushes and the pulls. but we know that we're positioned in the right space and we're on the right side of history. And so it's thanks to you for being on the right side of history that has brought us here. So all honor to you and thanks from the Foundation for Human Rights.
Thank you, Deborah.
I'm Judy Seidman, and I'm speaking for Kulumani Galela Reparations Movement. I think we wanted to say that when we were able to come to this commemoration, this honoring of Mary's work, we had lots of talks with our members, and what we've learned from the years, the decades, where you've been helping people see that just what went right and what went wrong with the TRC process, and helping us to start chart a way forwards. And if we can take this opportunity, maybe, we, on behalf of our members, wanted to give to both you as a stalwart and a veteran of our long history as victims and survivors of our members' history and our country's history of fighting for transitional justice, or justice as a whole. So, you.
Amandla
awethu
Amandla
awethu
phambili ngoMary Burton phambili phambili ngoMary Burton phambili phambili ngoMary Burton together with Yasmin Suka phambili. As we are coming up, it's not easy. Nomara Rashiapona was coming from Kulumane Galela Reparation Movement, who started to be Kulumane Support Group. We started as Kulumane Support Group because we managed to sneeze ourselves to the TRC, whereby the Truth and Reconciliation, by that time, it started as asking for perpetrators to come in, to ask for forgiveness, to get amnesty, in order the country of South Africa can be rebuilt, can have peace, can have reconciliation. As we heard that, we started to speak among ourselves as victims and survivors to say, who they are going to ask for forgiveness from if we are not part of that. Is when we started to group ourselves and let's support each other, and we have to go to that TRC and also put our demands and what's supposed to be done in order the country can be healed, in order the peace can be revealed. It's when we started by saying that there will be no reconciliation without reparation, without redress, without justice, without restoration of our human dignity. What I can say now, I'm not here to preach, is to say to both the ladies, and then this is the third one because it's part of that. Both ladies, the ones who managed to say, we accept, although we know what you are calling us as government of South Africa, to listen to the pains and the history of victims and survivors, but we are prepared to take whatever work and which responsibility which you ask us to do. People who knows it was not easy. They were even crying themselves, although they are commissioners. Listening to the history, listening to the stories of victims and survivors, and looking at the perpetrators, some who denied what they have done. So just as Kulumane, I wanted also to just don't close what we did for you, please. This is, which is written here, is part of what we've been fighting for, what is been even the TRC, when they finally gave the report to our government, to our parliament, they said that justice, reparation, Redress, the restoration of the human dignity is not yet done. It's the starting point. They pleaded with our government to say it needs to be done properly in order this country can be properly reconciled with each other for the future generation. And this one, it's where our Yasmin Suka, but it's because you are too far. She is here. Some who managed to see the film, which is done by our coalition, SACTJ coalition, who included all the organizations and individuals who are working hard for justice. You saw some of the Galela members who've been sleeping outside the Constitutional Court, who've been sleeping in cement, who've been getting rain, cold, the stones, whether it's winter, whether it's summer, whether it's what time of the year you call autumn or you call spring, whatever. They've been sleeping there, fighting for justice, fighting for reparation, fighting for redress, fighting for the restoration of their human dignity. They've been there, they never go. It is the first struggle, it's the first protest in South Africa which make people to sleep in protest, staying in protest and not moving. Yasmin Suka is part who gave us strength, is there. He went in there and speak with us, encouraged us, and gave strength to us because she knew that she's been working tirelessly to see the justice being done in South Africa. And we have been sent by the Kulumane Galela reparation members to say, we don't have anything, we don't have resources, we are sleeping outside, we don't eat, we even been closed the doors of having the toilets by our government, the current democratic government. To us, we didn't see the liberation as victims and survivors of our gross human rights violation here in South Africa. As now we don't even have food, we are sleeping outside, and we don't have toilets, we don't have water. We are sleeping with the boxes and the plastics. Some they saw what was shown in the film, which is today. We are still there. We are not going to leave until reparation has been done to us, justice has been done to us. This is not for us, it's for the whole country, all the victims and survivors of gross human rights, and we want even the world to learn. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nomarasha.
Thank you so much, Ma.
Thank you, Nomarasha.
I want to thank you for making this event to happen.
Thank you, and thank you, Ma. Black Sash recently took about 80 paralegals to the Constitutional Court to see the Kulumani protesters who are sleeping outside of the Constitutional Court in Braamfontein, and have consistently been there for, I think, over a year now, 2 years, over 2 years. But I wanted to say that part of Black Sash's work at the moment is this legacy of redress, is what we, in 1993, Mary and many other Black Sash members, there's this famous photo by Jill de Vlieg, where they're outside the place in town, I've left my head now, where they say, they have this poster that says apartheid is over but poverty remains, and that kind of redress is what Black Sash has been about. It's what Mary said and what one of the women said in the video, which is that we still don't have proper housing, we don't have proper education, we don't have proper medicine, and Mary said people deserve a decent life and a decent chance, and that includes healthcare. And so part of Black Sash's work in honoring Mary and honoring what all the victims of apartheid have been fighting for is a decent life for all, which was the promise of 1994. And so we've launched the Social Protection Floor campaign, and part of our campaign is cash in hand, which is a form of reparations. It's that Black Sash is calling for a basic income grant for people who have who live out the legacy of apartheid, the evil legacy of apartheid. And if we can just give people cash in hand on a monthly basis for for people to make the choices that they want to have, and have the decent life to afford healthcare and education for their children. We think that this is something that can be a huge form of reparations in South Africa. And it's been a Black Sash call since 1993. Marge and I, when we were digging through some of the things, we found an article Marge wrote in 1993, and that Mary had spoken about during the children's, the Commission into Children's Grants, saying the Square Commission, saying we've got to give people a decent chance of living, and a part of reparations is cash in hand. And I know that that's part of the reparations that the SACTJ, and it's something that Black Sash supports, because we want everyone to have a chance in this life.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. I think I would like to respond. The reparations campaign led by the Coalition for Transitional Justice is very much focused on the categories defined by the Act of victimhood. And many people were left out of that process. The Human Rights Violation Committee operated for 18 months only. So many people didn't find their way through the door to have their statement taken or to speak on a stage. So there were only 2,000 people who spoke on a stage. So those are the stories that you may remember, but for the others, they were written, and we don't know them except for volume 7, which is a thumbnail sketch of what happened to people. So our reparations campaign is to complete that process, to open up registration for those who were excluded and who were under the Act of the TRC found could be identified as victims. Now, we're not talking about millions and hundreds and thousands. So the complementary nature of cash for all, I think, is really very, very important. And this is why Black Sash, please join the coalition. I think I don't want to tie Mary and I don't want to tie anyone in the room where this has been a wonderful moment. There are just a few little thank yous that we want to pass on. I want to ask Hanifa, who's the chairperson of the coalition, to please come up. One is a small little gift for Yasmin, and the other one is for Mary. If you look in the embroidery, it's got Mary's name or Yasmin's name on it. And careful, because something might fall out if you don't hold it properly. But this is for you to take home. And a small show of our appreciation. The coalition hasn't got a lot of money. And we managed to do this, thank you, to the Heinrich Böll, who gave us 60,000. We have paid 30,000 from the coalition, and thank you to the Black Sash that also made a small contribution of 8,500. So it is a partnership, this is. And so these, if you don't mind, the one is for Yasmin and the other one is for Mary. You'll see the names there. Will you do the honors? And Fatima, please come onto the stage. Fatima was absolutely adamant. She wants to buy flowers. We can't give you flowers because you can't take them on the aeroplane. So this is a bunch of flowers for Mary. And maybe one of your sons can take them home for you. Maybe just put them on over there so it's easy to thank you. Wonderful, wonderful, thank you. So this is something that we want to do every year. This is the inaugural legacy lecture where we've honored our friend, our mentor, our comrade, Mary Burton. Next year, we will honor someone else. And we're welcome to suggestions. If you want to give us any suggestions of who you think we should be honoring, contact us. It's a kind of the end of the program now because we're going to mull through the Imam Harun Hall. Some of the materials you can take without paying. Some of them are very, very cheap and you can buy them. And then please join us for refreshments in the Elijah Lawser Hall. But I think very finally, I'm very, very grateful to Sophia Bray, who came on board on a short-term contract and has been amazing. Thank you so much for all your hard work and making this possible too. Thank you, Sophia. Can you stand up? So that's it. If Drew was here, I would say, please blow the trumpet. But sadly, he had to go off to a meeting. He's a scholar and going to be a teacher. So this is a great legacy, yes. I want to thank you and please enjoy the rest of the time together, milling through the Imam Harun Hall, which is just over there, and then to refreshments in the space next to it. Thank you very, very much for coming.
Before you all disappear.
Sorry, everyone. Mary just wants to say a few words. Sorry, everyone. If you can just settle down. Mary just wants to say a few words. If everyone can just settle down quickly, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Asanda and Shanaz.
That's all right. I would like to thank first Shirley and then all of you for coming and being here and creating this wonderful event, and particularly to thank Yasmin for her thoughtful address this afternoon and for coming to and from Johannesburg to be with us, and I really appreciate that very much indeed. So thank you to everybody who has made this afternoon possible.
Thank you.